Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends. I hope this video finds you well. It is another day of Ikoria previews. We got a number of cards to go over today. A lot of rares actually today to look at. Before we get into it though, just a couple things. First off, if you're curious as to where these cards were originally previewed, check out the description below. You can find out which content creator previewed which card today. And also, if you go over to flipsidegaming.com, you can still use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. However, they are not currently shipping out orders. I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. Without any further ado, though, let's get into it. We're going to begin by looking at two variations on cards that we saw yesterday. So if you want to hear my thoughts on them, check out yesterday's video. But we have the showcase copy of Majestic Auricorn that we didn't see yesterday, and the promo pack copy of Heartless Act. Alright, on to the new stuff for the day. Farfinder. This is a common. You'll be able to pick these up probably relatively easy in draft. And this is a fine limited card if you care about color fixing, or if you just want to make sure you're hitting all your land drops like towards the middle of the game. This might help a top heavy deck feel a little more confident. And it also has Vigilance, which does play well with other cards that are in the set as we've been seeing over the last few days. But at the end of the day, if you don't need it for those particular reasons, then you'll probably skip this one. This one's a German language preview, Drannith Healer. And this is a really sweet 2/2 for 2 in limited. It's got a lot of upside attached to it. And you know you need those 2/2s in your curve for draft or sealed, so why not pick ones that are going to do more than just sit there on the battlefield and be a 2/2. This is a great example of that. And it has two abilities. Whenever you cycle another card, you gain 1 life. So if you have a number of cycling cards in your deck, this could be a great option for you. And it also cycles away for 1, which is awesome on a 2/2 because early in the game, you do need these to beef up the battlefield and give yourself some board presence. But later in the game, sometimes drawing a 2/2 is a little underwhelming. Well, sometimes you might decide now to just cycle this away and try to hit something else. This one's a Spanish language preview of One Mind, and it's sorcery speed, but this is still going to be fantastic for you in draft or sealed if you're looking for a draw spell. It costs 2 less if you cast it and control a human creature and a non-human creature, right? So potentially you could draw 2 cards for just 1 blue. That feels pretty amazing. And even if it doesn't work out for you, drawing 2 cards in draft or sealed is going to be just fine as well. I could also see this showing up in some commander decks and maybe even more likely some brawl decks. Alright, this one comes to us from a Chinese simplified language preview, loosely translated, as a lot of these translations are, especially with the name. It's Dusk Mentor. Okay, so this is part of the cycle that we have been seeing this time. You have a creature that enters the battlefield and puts a lifelink counter on target non-human creature you control. Now, this is a human, so you can't put the counter on itself. But if you have something that's not a human, wonderful, there's definitely value to be had there, especially if it's a big creature or an evasive creature. If you can start hitting with a creature that you give lifelink to in a game of draft or sealed, that's going to feel pretty good. But this can be better sometimes. If you happen to have a lot of lifelink cards in your deck, maybe more so in a draft where you can really focus in on those, then you can use the second ability, black and 1, tap, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with lifelink. That could get out of hand in the right build. This one's Fire Prophecy. This is going to be good for you in limited. It's an uncommon. This could be a pretty high draft pick. 1 in red instant. This will deal 3 damage to target creature. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck if you do draw a card. So not only do you get to hopefully take out a creature, but you can also kind of tuck away a dead card and hopefully draw into some heat. In standard, I don't really think it's going to get there just because you have other options right now like Bone Crusher Giant, Scorching Dragonfire. Those feel a little more relevant, at least at this time. Flame Spill. This is actually a black bordered version of an uncard. You might remember Super Duper Death Ray. That was in Unstable as well as Unsanctioned, and this is your black bordered take on it. And for limited, it's going to be real good. I mean, 4 damage to target creature for 3. Nothing wrong with that. It's also an instant. And then the excess damage goes over to the creature's controller. So if you remember Super Duper Death Ray, that actually had Trample. They didn't call it Trample here, but it does something very similar, obviously. So when it comes to standard, if there is a red aggro deck out there with Tor Bran, maybe this sees a little play. I could definitely see that happening in Brawl, if no place else. This one's a German language preview. It is Frill Scare Mentor. And here's another part of that cycle. This time we're talking about a menace counter. So same deal applies as to the other cards we've seen from the cycle. It's human, so it can't take the counter itself. But when it enters the battlefield, you can put a menace counter on target non-human creature you control, which is going to be nice value, especially in an aggressive build. Rakdos has a lot of menace creatures, and again, if you're drafting, you can draft a bunch of these menace creatures and build around this a little bit. And much like all the other ones in the cycle, that second ability will pump all creatures with menace with +1/+1 counters, so they stick around, which is nice. That could be really backbreaking, even if you just had a couple menace creatures on the battlefield. Here's a take on an old Mirage card. This is Almighty Brushwag. Now, in Limited, this is a fantastic 1-drop. Like, early on, it's not doing a lot, sure. It's a 1 green 1/1 with trample. However, check out the ability here. A green and 3, it gets +3/+3 until end of turn. This is a fantastic way to push across some late damage. Maybe you're in a board stall. You have a lot of mana open, nothing to do with it. All week, we've been talking about how different keywords can matter in different decks in Draft or Sealed. And yes, trample is one of those keywords. So again, you might be able to draft around trample a little bit. And there are cards that could make this one even better at times. Eerie Ultimatum. Yeah, these ultimatums are going to be amazing. So this one, like all of them, are kind of expensive and they're very color intensive. I don't really think you're going to have a lot of opportunities to cast this successfully in Draft or Sealed. But you know where you do want to play this card? Commander, also Brawl, but definitely Commander because this is going to play with so many things. Look how powerful it is just in a vacuum. Return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is, in most Commander decks, everything. You're just going to get all your permanents back. They're going to go right into play for the cost here. But it wouldn't be Commander if you couldn't pull some shenanigans off with this card, right? So this might be better if you have a sacrifice deck. You sacrifice for benefit, then bring everything back. Maybe a self-mill deck just to get more cards in your graveyard. This will combo with a lot of things too, like Eternal Witness. You bring Eternal Witness back, and because of the trigger on that card, you can regrow this one back to your hand. That's kind of awesome. You could use it multiple times over the course of the game that way. Remember too, beyond the Eternal Witness being on the battlefield, if you have like a sack outlet and a way to sacrifice your lands as well as the Eternal Witness, you can create a loop where you just keep going, sacrificing for benefit. Because, like I said, the Eternal Witness will get this back. And if you can sacrifice the tapped lands, well, they're going to come back untapped and that will let you play this again right away. Yeah, this is insane. People can create loops with this or they're just going to play it for value. Either way, it's going to be amazing. Emergent Ultimatum. Now this one does exile itself, notice, but what does it do? Search your library for up to 3 monocolored cards with different names, exile them, an opponent chooses one of those cards. Shuffle that card into your library. You may cast the other cards without paying their mana cost. So your opponent or one of your opponents, if you're playing Commander or Brawl, which you probably are if you're playing this card, they're going to have a decision to make here. But especially in Commander, I don't think it's going to be too difficult to create a no-win situation. They do have to be monocolor, sure, but there's a ton of combos you can think of where there's going to be 3 cards and any 2 of them could be backbreaking, right? So this is going to see a ton of play in Commander and Brawl, again, I have no doubt. Narset of the Ancient Way. Okay, this is a 4 loyalty Planeswalker for 4 mana, Jeskai and 1. And this is pretty good. Now, the big thing with Narset is it cares about non-creature spells. You'll see that as we go through the pieces here. However, that's okay because in Standard or Pioneer, which I do think this card could see play in those formats, you could definitely build something like either a Spellslinger deck, a Planeswalker Super Friends deck, or a Cycling deck. I do think every day we see more cards that feel like that's going to be a possibility in Standard. So let's break this down a little bit. +1, gain 2 life. That part's there really for Limited, just in case you don't have any non-creature cards in your hand at the time. You still get something for the +1. But the second part, add one of the Jeskai color mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast a non-creature spell. So there's where the non-creature piece starts to come in. The -2 is very good because it lets you protect it. And check this out. Draw a card, then you may discard a card. So you don't have to. You could just simply draw a card here. But if you want to discard a card, and many times you will for various reasons, and this could be one of them, when you discard a non-land card this way, this will deal damage equal to the card's converted mana cost to target creature or planeswalker. So that is one way for this card to protect itself, although it is minusing when it does it. Now, -6, I usually don't like to evaluate planeswalkers on their ultimate, but it's not too hard to get there. And it's also not a backbreaking one, but it's definitely still good to have if you get it. You'll have an emblem whenever you cast a non-creature spell. This emblem deals 2 damage to any target. So that is any target, including the player, which is good. Yeah, aside from Standard and Pioneer, like we discussed, this is also a great card in Limited, and it should be. I mean, it's a mythic rare planeswalker. You would expect it to be a bomb, and it is. You'll see this also showing up in Commander and Brawl decks, too. I really like this design a lot. Necropanther is next, and this is just a solid card in general for an Orzhov deck. This could see Standard play in an aggressive build with some late reanimation, or in a sacrifice build, for example. This will be great in Limited too. It's a solid mutate card with a very good mutate trigger ability. And beyond that, the base stats are just good for Drafter Seal. The 3/3 for 3, even if it is 2 different colors to cast. Offspring's Revenge. The appeal here is that this provides repeatable reanimation. It costs you a little bit, Mardu and 2 for an enchantment, but at the beginning of combat in your turn, so that could be the turn you play it, which is nice, you get to exile target red, white, or black creature card from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 1/1. So the idea here is you want creatures with good enters the battlefield effects, or even good tap effects, because it does have haste. You can tap the creature for the effect. I think if you could build a deck that had a lot of those good creature effects in it, then yeah, this might see some standard play. This could also be good with cycling creatures or mutate too. Is it fast enough for standard? I think that's the big question. Don't know, considering the casting cost and the fact that you can only bring one thing back per turn. Is that going to be enough? Because the environment is going to be speeding up when it gets even more cards added to it. So time will tell on that one. But aside from that, limited, yeah, this is going to be awesome. Again, especially with mutate and cycling. Commander and Brawl, same thing. You can build around mutate, build around cycling. And yeah, there's a lot of things you'll be able to do in especially Commander again, because you are going to have a lot of creatures at your disposal with really powerful effects. Ruinous Ultimatum. I don't think I have to say too much about this card. It kind of speaks for itself. Sorcery, destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. Okay. Yeah, if you're playing Mardu colors in Commander or Brawl, I think you should just have this in your deck. Skycant Sovereign. I like this card a lot for Drafter Sealed. It's a blue and white 1/1 flyer. Okay, it doesn't sound too amazing yet, but stay tuned. This will get +1/+1 for each other creature you control with flying. Okay, better, but still kind of conditional. Then you have blue, white, and 2 create a 1/1 white catbird creature token with flying. So if this was just an enchantment and not a creature, and you could use it as a mana sink for 4 mana to create 1/1 flyers, I would say this is going to be a fantastic card in Drafter Sealed. It's going to help you get past board stalls. But this is a little different because not only can you do that, but now you can also grow this other flyer as well, and this one will get bigger and bigger. So if you needed a big old flyer in the air to block or something, potentially you could get there with this. Granted, it's going to be a little more fragile than an enchantment in my example because it is a creature, but still, this is a rare. You won't see it all the time, but it's going to be very good when you do have the opportunity to play with it. Standard? Yeah, I think this could see play in the Flyers deck if it can get there this season. Start off with a Healer's Hawk on turn 1, this out on turn 2, making it a 2/2, so it has a little stability. Turn 3, go into your Empyrean Eagle. That's going to make this a 4/4. Feels like it's pretty good. Song of Creation. This one's a Teamer in 1 for an enchantment, so again, it's going to stay in play. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Okay. Whenever you cast a spell, draw 2 cards. Okay. At the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. Let's talk Commander and Brawl first, especially Commander again. This might not get to the point where you have to discard your hand because you might just simply win the game. If you can create an endless mana loop, well, here's something you can do with it. Just start playing spells, and every time you do, you draw 2 cards and you just keep going. Maybe you could put this in a Storm deck, actually, but you're going to keep refreshing your hands, and hopefully you keep going unless you just start hitting a lot of lands, which could happen, sure. But I think eventually, even if you play fair with this, you're going to start running away with the game because of the card advantage if an opponent can't deal with it. This also plays really well with Underworld Breach, and I think you might see those cards together in Standard and Pioneer too. I think the combo could be that good. Another Elk, Gigantha the Wellspring, and this is also a companion card. What's the companion stipulation? No card in your starting deck has more than one of the same mana symbol in its casting cost. Remember though, you don't have to play this as a companion. If your deck doesn't meet that requirement, this can just be part of your deck. That's fine too. And let's start with Commander because this could be bonkers. Sure, if I tap this, I can add 1 mana of any color. This mana can't pay generic mana cost, so it's not perfect, but who cares? This is going to play really well with things like Sisay, whether like Captain, Joda Archmage Eternal, Golos Tireless Pilgrim. The list goes on and on. Lots of things you're going to be able to do with this in Commander and Brawl, no doubt. This can even be your commander if you wanted to. It is legendary. This is powerful enough to possibly show up in Standard too if the right deck comes along at some point. The ability could come in handy in Limited too, but it's also a 5/5 for 5 with just one part of the casting cost on color, and that one's hybrid, so it's pretty flexible to cast too. Kahira the Orphan Guard, and here is another legendary creature companion. This time the stipulation, each creature card in your starting deck is a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast card. So again, remember, you don't have to make it your companion. You can just put this in a deck, even if you have creatures that aren't of those types. This has vigilance as well. It only costs 3. You got 2 Selesnya hybrid and 1 for a 3/2. Each other creature you control that's a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast gets +1/+1 and has vigilance. This is a fantastic lord for a number of different creature types. It just so happens that these 5 creature types are very prevalent in this limited environment. So let's talk limited first. Whether you draft around this and it is your companion, or you just throw it in a deck with a bunch of creatures, odds are you're going to have value. You're going to play a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast even by accident, and this thing is going to be good for you. It also has vigilance and gives vigilance, so it plays well into that whole vigilance theme where you try to give as many creatures as possible vigilance, and that looks like it could be a great draft strategy, actually. Now for standard, pioneer, modern, this is legendary, so it can't stack, but if any of these creature types at any point are relevant in any of the metas, yeah, this thing could see play in those decks. Commander, Brawl, it's going to shine there. Again, it's another lord for some creature types that don't necessarily have a ton of support in that department. So you're going to see this show up in different tribal decks. And again, it's legendary, so it could be your commander. Sonorous Howlbonder. Okay, this one is going to be a nightmare in limited. It's a 2/2 for 3 with menace. Each creature you control with menace can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. So this has menace, can't be blocked by 1 creature, can't be blocked by 2 creatures. You have to go with 3. And if you have enough menace creatures, and again, you could maybe draft around that a little bit, this is going to be potentially backbreaking. Now, even if you don't have a ton of menace creatures, like you have this and 1 or 2 others, maybe a way to put a menace token on something, this could still be very, very difficult to deal with. I would go as far as to say this might see a little standard play if we see like a Rakdos aggro deck that's running a lot of menace. And with the pieces we're getting from this set, it's possible. Zerda the Dawnwaker. Okay, now this is another crazy legendary creature companion. This time it's 2 Boros hybrid and 1 for a 3/3. The companion stipulation, each permanent card in your starting deck has an activated ability. Abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana in that cost to less than 1, so you still have to pay 1 to activate the ability, but still, for a lot of cards, a nice reduction. Pay 1, tap, target creature can't block this turn. And that's kind of nice to have on a Boros card in general. You know, a lot of times Boros likes to attack in, so that makes sense. It's definitely on theme. So let's talk about Drafter Sealed first with this thing. You know what's an activated ability? Cycling's an activated ability, and Boros cards care about cycling in this set. Now granted, a lot of the cycling cards only cost 1 to begin with, but there are some that cost more, so again, I think you'll appreciate the reduction a lot of times. This will be especially good in draft, like a lot of these companion cards, because you're going to be able to draft around this a little bit. Whether it ends up being your companion or not, the more activated abilities that aren't mana abilities that cost more than 1 in your deck, the better this card is going to be. Ultimately, Drafter Sealed I think is going to be fantastic for you. You're going to find value with this card in some way, shape, or form. Standard, I think it could see play, maybe even Pioneer. This is good with things like Kenrith the Returned King, for example. And if maybe Standard gets a cycling deck, this could be part of it. This is also going to be awesome in Brawl and Commander decks. Again, you could focus on cycling, or you could just focus on other activated abilities. We've seen great activated abilities already in this set. You know, there's a ton in Standard, so I'm sure this will see a lot of Brawl play. Commander, there's a million things you can do with this card, right? Basalt Monolith in this card. There, I got you started. And it is legendary, so it could be your commander as well. This card is awesome. Hey, that does it for today's previews. We're going to come back tomorrow. We're going to do it again. We're going to see all the cards that come out over the next 24 hours or so. Until next time, though, hey, thanks for watching. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Stay home. Stay safe. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.